There's a lot that comes to mind when someone mentions American life in the 1890s. We call it the gay 90s because people seemed more carefree and took pleasure in just being alive. We imagine it as a romantic, happy time in our history. Clearly, some things were a bit different 130 years ago. The dollar bill, for instance, looked like this. Edwin Stanton's portrait graces the front of the note instead of George Washington. He was the Secretary of War in President Abraham Lincoln's cabinet. It was not until 1928 that the United States Mint issued dollar bills that have a more familiar look to them. So, money was different in 1890. People's street clothes didn't look like anything we wear today. Gentlemen wore top hats. Women, too, wore something to grace the tops of their heads. A respectable woman always kept her hair up when in public. She frequently covered herself from her neck down to her ankles. Here is Frances Willard in her prime, suffragist and temperance union president, trying to learn how to ride a bike. It looks like she has a lot of good help. Barbershop quartets are probably the first thing that comes to our minds when we think of the 1890s, wearing straw hats and goofy uniforms while singing love songs a cappella, their voices blending in close harmony. And how in the world did they manage to get onto the seat of those funny bicycles and actually ride them? I don't think they rode them cross-country. The 1890s era in our country was known as a time when people were just having fun. However, the fun shouldn't be carried too far. These 1890s burlesque dancers were just too much for respectable, God-fearing folks who wouldn't even talk about such things. People were scandalized by their appearance, and upright citizens just would not even think of going to see one of their shows. But if they did, they could only hope that no one they knew saw them in the audience. But what about Rock Island? The city of Rock Island was certainly here in the 1890s, a growing, bustling city. We are very fortunate that someone was around then to capture what things looked like to those who were alive then. He was a photographer with a downtown Rock Island studio. We think that this is a collage of playful photographs of him taken at different times from different angles and here combined. His name was Oscar Hakelier, and I'm just guessing at the pronunciation of his last name. His life was most eventful. Born in Paris, France, his parents took him to Germany as a child, and there his father died. From Germany, his journey to Rock Island took him through Russia and Siberia, then Sweden, and back again to Paris. From France, he left for the United States, where his trek continued. From New York City to Memphis, Tennessee, Louisville, Kentucky, and St. Louis, before settling, marrying, and raising a family here in Rock Island. He operated out of his studio, which he named the Vienna Studio, and it was located at 1722 2nd Avenue, and it was there from 1888 until he sold his business in 1903, departing for San Francisco in 1904, arriving there in time to experience the great earthquake of April 18, 1906. He died in California, his obituary appearing in the February 17, 1908 edition of the Rock Island Argus, our local newspaper. During his 15 years in Rock Island, Oscar took his camera with him as he traveled around the area, taking snapshots of what was here and what life was like for those who lived here. There are images from Rock Island of its notable buildings. The modern Woodman of the World headquarters, which opened its offices in 1898, was still under construction when he snapped this photo. And this must have been a big day for the newly completed Rock Island County Courthouse. My guess is that this was taken on the day of its dedication, March 13th, 1897. The decade was a time of big events that took place here in Rock Island. Big for the city and important for our institution of higher learning, Augustana College. This was a large group of college co-eds parading to the train station downtown on June 6, 1893, to welcome the Lutheran Bishop von Scheele, whom the King of Sweden had sent to tour significant Swedish Lutheran locations in the United States. He was a visiting dignitary for Augustana's commencement in 1893. When he stepped down from the train, there was an enthusiastic and warm crowd of Rock Islanders waiting to welcome him. Notice the guys on the rooftop on the building to the left of the photo. There are images of the mighty Mississippi River and the fellows who were working hard every day to shore up its banks. The 1890s was the decade of the steam-powered paddle wheelers, like this one docked at the Rock Island Landing. They were quite impressive to watch as they navigated up and down the river under a full head of steam. The dredges kept the river channel clear and deep so the barges could move their cargo. These were some of the men who piloted those freshwater ships. Oscar remembered to include the people who worked below decks and those who were looking for a little romance. With America's Civil War still fresh in their memories, Oscar Hakelier took his camera to Arsenal Island to have a look. There he recorded the machine shops. Colonel George Davenport's old house, in which he was murdered that dark night of July 4th, 1845. This was in a very bad state of repair 50 years later in the 1890s. And guys would be guys back then too. Here are a few horsing around on the pier of the original bridge that spanned the Mississippi River from the Arsenal Island to Davenport side. On the other side of the water was Iowa and the city of Davenport. The conservatory in Central Park was a nice place to spend a Sunday afternoon. The Civil War Union Soldiers and Sailors Monument is still standing in its original location yet today. Traveling upstream, our Rock Island photographer took a camera shot of Pine Bend on the upper Mississippi River, just south of St. Paul, Minnesota, which looks very much today like it did in the decade of the gay 90s. Now these prints may be viewed online without appointment or restriction. I have scanned them, dated them, done a lot of historical research on them, and uploaded them to the Upper Mississippi Valley Digital Archive where they now reside. Here's a little introduction on how you may find them. A good place to start is at our library's website. Our web address is rockislandlibrary.org. Once you're there, scroll down and look for the big green circle with the words "Research It" underneath. Below that, you will want to look for the link that says Library Research Resources. Now click on that and it will take you to that page. Click on the Upper Mississippi Valley Digital Image Archive link and you will go directly there. Scroll to the heading of the Rock Island Public Library and click there. Then click the blue rectangular button that says Browse. To go directly to the 1890s photographs, you will need to go down the page just a little and look to your left to find the words Photographic Prints. Once you click, you are there. You will be immediately at the part of the archive where they are kept. You can choose List View or Grid View, and you can choose between 10 and 200 images per page. If you just go with the 10, which is the default, you will have more pages. The photos are all there. You will just have to go from page to page. After looking through what you have on icon view, you might decide you would like to look at a specific photograph. So just click on that and it will enlarge. It will be easier to see, and you can make it larger yet by clicking on the double arrow at the corner of the picture. Notice the shadowy, mustachioed man standing at the left edge of this photo of the Augustana College co-eds. If you would like to download a copy of the photo, you can choose which size you would prefer. Or you can choose to print it if you have a printer attached and running with your computer. In order to find out more about the photograph, go a little farther down and you will find information that describes what was happening and when it happened. You may do this with any or all of the 1890s photographs that were scanned from our collection at the Rock Island Public Library. This is one of the treasures that the Rock Island Public Library has in its archives. We are happy to be able to share it with you in this convenient way. Altogether, there are 106 photographic prints from the 1890s that our local photographer has left us. Take some time to go to this remarkable website and enjoy just looking around Rock Island's world of the 1890s.